Hey, everyone! Welcome back. Today's video is about one of the biggest scammers in the US in the 1960s. He pulled off around a $2.5 million scam with fake checks. Moreover, he traveled to 26 to 28 countries in 5 years. He worked under many identities. The most prominent among them was working as an airline pilot and doctor. He also worked as a lawyer, jail warden, and in many other roles. He was caught by the US government twice, but he was lucky enough to escape both times. He displayed great bravery in his escapes. Once, he escaped by crawling through the aircraft's lavatory and then through the landing gear. Today's video tells the story of a man who lived a brave life. His name is Frank Abagnale. You may have heard about him. Catch Me If You Can is indeed a movie in English, based on the autobiography of Frank Abagnale, which is also a true story. Let's explore how he impersonated an airline pilot and delve into his life. Frank Abagnale was born on April 27, 1948, in New York. During his childhood, he faced some familial issues and ended up living with his father, who owned a small shop. Frank frequently helped his father in the shop and observed how he wrote checks and withdrew money from the bank. At a young age, Frank began emulating his father's actions, using his checks to withdraw money from the bank without his father's knowledge, thus earning some money for himself. However, his actions were discovered by his father when Frank was 16 years old. Unable to face his father, Frank left the country. When he left the country, he wanted to find a job and make some money. So, he decided to secure a good job for himself. At that time, he realized that being an airline pilot was a highly respected job in society. So, he decided to pursue a pilot position for himself. To do so, he initially contacted Pan American Airlines by phone, reaching out to their headquarters. He claimed to be a pilot and explained that he had lost his uniform during a layover, requesting a replacement. Pan American Airlines provided him with information on where to obtain a new uniform. Upon receiving this information, he visited the office and collected his uniform. Immediately after, he paid the required amount to Pan American Airlines. Before collecting the uniform, he had gathered photos of Pan American Airlines pilots. Carefully studying them, he crafted a fake pilot ID and proceeded to collect the uniform. After obtaining the uniform, he flew on numerous Pan American Airlines flights, assuming the role of a pilot once his duties were completed. Feeling compelled to learn something about flying, he wanted to be prepared in case passengers or cabin crew asked him questions about flying while he traveled as a pilot. To gather information about flying, he devised a plan. Pretending to be a school student, he contacted Pan American Airlines under the guise of conducting research for an article. He approached the Human Resources Department with this pretext. Under this ruse, he conducted interviews with pilots and gathered all the basic details about flying. He utilized the fake Pan American Airlines ID not only to travel on Pan American Airlines but also on many other airlines. However, he never intended to fly the aircraft himself. He understood the importance of ensuring the safety of both his life and the lives of passengers on board. He traveled as a deadheading pilot, meaning he portrayed himself as a pilot who had completed his duties and therefore didn't need to operate the aircraft. On one occasion, due to a lack of available seats, he found himself in the cockpit while the aircraft was in flight. The pilots already present in the cockpit offered him the opportunity to fly the aircraft, but he declined. However, there was a time when he was compelled to take control of the aircraft. In that situation, he operated the aircraft using autopilot. According to Pan American Airlines, Frank Abagnale traveled on approximately 250 flights when he was only 16 years old. Despite his young age, nobody suspected him because he appeared more mature than his years. Between the ages of 16 and 18, he traveled to about 26 countries. He not only used Pan American Airlines, but also many other airlines. Additionally, he stayed in numerous hotels using the name of Pan American Airlines, with the airline covering the expenses for his accommodations and meals. One day, Frank Abagnale visited a school as a guest, wearing his pilot uniform. During his visit, he recruited 8 girls who showed interest in becoming cabin crew members. He offered them jobs at Pan American Airlines and provided them with cabin crew uniforms. Additionally, he filmed a promotional video for Pan American Airlines featuring these girls. 2 years later, Pan American Airlines began to doubt Frank's identity and initiated an investigation into him without his knowledge. However, Frank became aware of the investigation and managed to escape. Afterward, he assumed various identities, including those of a doctor, lawyer, and jail warden. One day, while in France, he was apprehended after being identified by a cabin crew member who had traveled with him previously. Upon being transported to New York, Frank was granted a bathroom break. Seizing the opportunity, He opened the washroom latch and descended through the landing gear, jumping off the moving aircraft to escape. But the security officers reported the incident to the police, stating that it was unlikely for him to have escaped in such a manner. However, he was later identified by a security officer at the ticket counter, leading to his eventual capture. Despite being punished in 3 countries, USA, Sweden, and France, Frank's sentence in the US was eventually reduced. This was due to his agreement to assist in training law enforcement on how to detect, prevent, and make fraudulent checks. Following his release, Frank struggled to find employment due to his criminal background. Eventually, he founded his own company, Abagnale and Associates. Years later, the FBI approached Frank and offered him a position as a professor at the FBI Academy. He primarily teaches methods for recognizing and preventing check fraud, as well as educating on the techniques used to create fraudulent checks, training individuals selected by the FBI. So, this is the story of exploits of Frank Abagnale, a notorious figure known as one of the most troubled pilots by the U.S. government in the 1960s.